Hello, everyone. Hello, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Kickstart event of the UNDP's Istanbul Innovation Days. The theme of the 2021 Innovation Days, Istanbul Innovation Days, is development and its futures. And futures is deliberately in plural because IID 2021 is not about what development is today, but what it could be. And this plurality is needed in a time of COVID, the challenging days we live in, where the future is uncertain and needs to be explored. And that's what IID will be doing over 8 weeks with a total of 30 conversations. There will be 3 regional conversations to explore regionally relevant needs and signals of change of what these futures we're talking about could be. And the topic for this first regional dialogue for Europe and Central Asia is urban shifts, transformations and narratives that fuel them. Now, it's no surprise that we're talking about urban shifts because cities, as we all know, are at the forefront of both the challenges and the opportunities we face now in the 21st century, in this crisis and post-crisis world. So over the next 75 minutes or so, we will aim to uncover and reveal what are the new models and what are the new narratives that are emerging in our cities of today. How can cities balance blue and green economic development? Where are the new partnerships going to be? And where is the financing for these innovations and creative thinking that we're talking about? Where will that come from? My name is Shada Islam. I'm based in Brussels, and it's my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to moderate and facilitate these discussions. Now, just a few housekeeping rules before we start and embark on our journey. Please note that there is simultaneous interpretation in English, Russian, and Turkish. And to change language, you have to click on the globe icon at the bottom of your Zoom framework. So please do that when you need interpretation. Now, we are hoping to have a lot of questions from you, and we will strive to give you the answers. So the question and answer function is open, and we welcome your input. Now, if for reasons of time, shortage of time, we cannot answer your questions today, so rest reassured, these will feed into the IID main event, which will take place over a 48-hour period from 23rd to the 25th of March. So that's enough from me for the moment. Let me introduce my great pleasure in introducing the UNDP Regional Director, Ms. Mirjana Spoljaric Egger, excuse me for my mispronunciation, Spoljaric Egger, Regional Bureau for Europe and Central Asia, to make her opening remarks. Mirjana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shada. Good morning, Excellencies, dear colleagues, and good morning, Achim. I welcome you to the regional conversation we are holding today on urbanization and urban transformation. The Istanbul Innovation Day started in 2014 with the support of the Turkish government to promote outside-of-the-box approaches and new ways of problem solving within the organization. In its 6th iteration, the IID now pushes the edge, focusing this year on development and its futures. To achieve this, we plan to hold about 30 conversations in a span of 8 weeks. This is also the first time we are holding the IID in a fully virtual fashion. And nevertheless, we want to start the dialogues in the Europe and Central Asia region where the IIDs began. The objective of this regional dialogue is to highlight, as I said, region-specific opportunities and signals of change, and to provide a sense of direction for development cooperation in a post-pandemic world. And for us, this will be urban transformation, because there are strong needs and demands coming from mayors in our region. Urban spaces in Europe and Central Asia either suffer from depopulation and dying industries, or high density of population. And across all, mayors struggle with old infrastructure, weak capacities in administration, and reliance on the industries that are out of date. UNDP has the biggest footprint of any international development organization at the local level. We are the go-to agency for local authorities around the world. And SDG localization and local governance are at the heart of our agenda. And even as we tackle depopulation, which is something we are currently systematically unpacking from multiple dimensions in the Western Balkans, we start by looking at local level transformations. And while much has been done already, more remains to be delivered. UNDP's Regional Bureau for Europe and Central Asia has developed a city offering, a set of processes and tools that enable country offices of UNDP to develop cross-cutting portfolios for urban resilience and renewal. The initiative, the so-called Agora, is rolled out in 4 cities in our region, but also in the Philippines, and will be embedded within the new EU program, Mayors for Economic Growth. And I'm therefore very pleased that the dialogue we are hosting today brings together first-hand experience from diverse sectors. I'm honored to welcome Aurelio Ciocoi, the Prime Minister of Moldova. And I'm very pleased to welcome Fatma Shaheen as well, who successfully led the municipality of Gaziantep while it was at the front of the largest recorded refugee crisis. I'm also very happy to welcome Prime Minister for the Canton of Sarajevo, Edin Forto, and Dr. Josiane Cotairar, Member of the European Parliament. And I'm looking forward to hearing Kerstin Dunlop of Climate Kick, an initiative that is supporting cities in Europe to transition to climate neutrality. And I thank the administrator, Achim Steiner of UNDP, for hosting this event. And I pass the floor, I think, to Kerstin Dunlop. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And it is indeed a pleasure to be here, Mr. Steiner, and the entire gathering of the UNDP. I'm going to share a screen and use slides. Let me just make sure that that works immediately for you. Can you confirm that you can see this? Yep, good. Okay. So let me start here. My name is Kerstin Dunlop. I lead an organization called EIT Climate Kick, and I'm going to give you a glimpse, if you like, into a world of work that has been designed to respond to a changing context, a context in which language awareness, realization, and an understanding of the gap, the growing gap between the models we're using, the predictions, and our actions globally with respect to climate change has shifted our language from climate change to climate emergency. And we are shifting and have shifted our actions and our responses in a way that is commensurate. EIT Climate Kick is a European agency. We work across the entire European perimeter, across all 27 member states. We have a physical presence in 13, but we also work in sub-Saharan Africa, in South America, and we have partnerships in the Far East with Australia, with Israel, and with the West Coast of the US. And we are looking to, what we do is catalyze change. We have a focus on systems transformation, which will be the focus of my intervention here, and particularly looking to combine education and capacity building, entrepreneurship, business creation, new ventures, and innovation, technology transfer, social change, mobilization of communities and citizens. So what I will speak about to launch this session is about new models of transformation that are deploying research and innovation differently, that are seeking to design it differently, that are connecting it to decision-making differently. And this responds very much to a context of emergency, of a very, very small window in which we still have to act, and of the intense complexity of the challenges we face, just as indeed have been outlined: depopulation, dying industries, old infrastructure, weak public administrations. It is a social complexity above all, social, economic, political. And with complexity comes extreme degrees of uncertainty. What we have learned over our 12 years of history is that innovation in the way in which we've been doing it, individual projects, individual initiatives, startups, new businesses, project preparation, project financing, single projects are simply not getting us anywhere close to where we need to be if our objective and our need is to transform whole cities. and the ways in which they live, they breathe, they move, they understand resources and assets, or indeed, broader than that, to transform the regions and the agricultural practices that they depend upon and the member states and nations within which they sit. So what we have done is to turn ourselves into a prototype for an alternative way of working on this challenge and an alternative way of using innovation to work with cities. A couple of years ago, we launched a construct we call deep demonstrations for a very simple reason: to offer a possibility of large-scale examples, to get over the problem of seeing is believing and turn whole cities into test beds for 1.5 degree aligned transitions. We did so with respect to a number of different areas, one of which was healthy, clean cities, and that's what we'll drill into right now. But just to give you a sense of the scope of this work, this is where we currently operate in deep demonstration approaches, the approach that I will describe to you. And as you'll see, it is indeed all over Europe. It's also heavily involved in many of Southeastern Europe and Eastern European areas. And those are the areas where we now expand this year and next, this type of approach. What do I mean when I'm describing systems innovation? One of the challenges of innovation is that it is currently classically arranged as a funneling construct where we identify and ideate a lot of ideas, we run them through a set of selection criteria to work out what the winning propositions might be, and at that point begin to invest more and more finance and scale them up. One of the challenges we have there is that complex adaptive systems will not change with single interventions unless we take a very, very long time, which we don't have. They really need to be wrangled in ways that understand multiple simultaneous intervention points and leverage points intersecting and interacting with one another. And that requires a different design for innovation itself. So what we have done is to invert and shift the core paradigm here, starting with, for example, the need. What is it that we need to do in any single city or place to achieve full-scale decarbonization? What will be required, or what kinds of risks and stresses from climate change effects do we know are likely to be the reality for that city? Too much water, too little water, too much heat, too little heat, major stresses to do with waste, with toxicity, with air pollution, with social inequalities, and so on. And we describe and scope that problem space and work back to design innovation for that. The second thing is to think very deliberately around the way in which innovation is deployed to meet that kind of challenge effectively. And here the mechanism is to use innovation not as a race to winning solutions that can be scaled up to existing market dynamics, but as a systematic mechanism for learning faster than the pace of change, for acquiring information that is able to support decision-making about how to catalyze large-scale transformation in real living social and economic systems. And for that, we use a portfolio approach. In other words, we construct and we choose a deliberately chosen perimeter of multiple simultaneous innovation actions, working on different leverage points: waste solutions, water, energy substitution, infrastructure, planning, changes in procurement laws, innovations in financial mechanisms to privilege trees rather than concrete, mechanisms to connect more trees with nature-based solutions around water capture or air quality, or food systems, local subsistence farming within city constructs, rewilding, and the connections through to community rebuilding and emotional and mental resilience. In other words, what we're doing is constructing a perimeter whereby innovation becomes the currency of exchange between local communities choosing to engage and participate and design multiple parallel initiatives that are connected through a process of sense-making, and that are connected by an ongoing inquiry and almost an interrogation. What are we learning here? How is that project doing? Which obstacles is it coming across? What does that tell us about a set of possible synergies that we haven't thought about in, for example, the relationship between sources of energy and the way we design air quality initiatives? And all of that gets us to the kinds of initiatives that mean we can be intervening on an entire city perimeter in a way that pulls all of these different elements together within a construct of accelerated learning. This is an example of what we're doing in one particular city, I'm just going to very, very quickly drill into what's happening in Madrid. This is a kind of a high-level capture of all of the initiatives within a portfolio where Madrid had three major concerns. How do we dial up the greening, the rewilding of the city to improve air quality, heat stress, water capture, and food security, but also social challenges on social stress and tensions that have a lot to do with mental and emotional well-being. How do we deal and change very dramatically the mobility infrastructure for the city? And how do we create a regulatory environment that is favorable to major shifts in transformation effects and initiatives? And the portfolio starts then to drill into, in each area, a number of different innovations, each of which is working to understand what would the infrastructure solutions, test a number of different possibilities or experiments in the way in which infrastructure intersects with planning. What do community engagements look like? How would we get indicators here to support participation and cultural identity, and so on and so forth? It is a fully systemic approach to transforming a city. In practical terms, this is how the city itself renders it, because as with every intervention, this doesn't come in to a plan zero. This starts with a living city that has a number of urban planning priorities, a number of projects already in play. And this is how Madrid renders to itself the way in which a number of different existing initiatives start to become pulled together within one coherent framework for action, for learning, and for impact, a systemic framework and a systemic portfolio approach. For the city, what that has meant is that they have been able to package up an economic argument for the combination of initiatives that are being placed, with a rough estimate of about 70,000 jobs created by 2030. They have been able to put forward that portfolio approach and the expected learnings and innovation actions, scale-ups and investment that will come from it to the European Commission as part of the Spanish government's response or utilization of COVID resilience and recovery funds. And of course, this is something that must be and is owned and presided and sponsored and run from the core, from the city government itself. So with that, I'm going to conclude, and I notice that one of the key questions here to feed into the panel are some of the learnings that we have had, the key enabling conditions and the role of policymakers. I would say there are three learnings that we have from taking this kind of approach. It is very much at the kind of raw edge. We are on a journey that will take 10 years at least in most of the places we're working in. And this is very much about capacity and capability building quickly in order to scale and encourage cohort learning and a scaling out of what we're doing. The first learning is take the time to secure intent and to understand the scale and the shape of the problem. Don't just run straight to solution just because that feels like the immediate practical thing to do. The second thing is a deliberately designed portfolio, a place-based real economy portfolio structured as a systemic framework for action and for learning really helps hold together sectors and silos and decision makers and policymakers that otherwise normally operate in parallel universes. It's hard, but it makes a material difference. And the last learning is the value of closing the loop, of connecting innovation effort with everyday decision making, with real-time policy making, closing the loop in the form of decision support, in the form of much higher qualitative information to direct flows of capital, and much higher qualitative frameworks within which to frame and structure ownership and participation of people living with the choices for the future. And this ultimately comes down to building a capability for self-renewal and for self-transformation at every level, at the public administration level, amongst communities on the ground, with industry. That's probably the most important thing, that capability to hold a space of collective intent and to operate in a complex way, accepting and understanding that in that complexity lie the opportunity for real transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Kirsten. So a really fascinating journey you've taken us on to how to move beyond single point interventions to large scale transformation in cities, in order to have a large-scale impact. And the takeaways, the learnings, as you put it, Kirsten, are take the time to understand the problem, look at the real economy portfolio and the value of closing the loop. So thank you very much indeed, Kirsten and Mirjana. Now we have the pleasure of watching a slideshow of examples of urban change for sustainable development by UNDP and its partners in the cities of Sarajevo and Banja Luka. So let's watch the slides. Thank you. So really an amazing inventory of experiments and green projects across the region. Thank you very much, UNDP, for showing that. Now it's my pleasure to facilitate and moderate the leaders' discussion that we're having now. Mirjana already introduced them to you very, very briefly. Let me do it once again. We're really delighted to have with us the Prime Minister of the Republic of Moldova, Mr. Aureliu Ciocue. Prime Minister, thank you very much for joining us for this conversation today. We also have the pleasure of having with us Achim Steiner. He is the UNDP Administrator. Thanks for being here as well, Achim. Fatima Şahin is the Mayor of Gaziantep and the President of the Union of Municipalities in Turkey. Lovely to see you here, Ms. Şahin. Edin Forto, Prime Minister, Sarajevo Canton, Bosnia-Herzegovina. And last but not least, a friend from Malta, Josiane Cutajar, member of the European Parliament, currently in Malta, but should be normally in Brussels, I think, some of the time at least. So we're going to go deeper into the conversation that we started with Mirjana and Kirsten about urban transformation in these challenging times because of the pandemic, of course, but also, of course, because of the climate emergency. Let me start with you, Prime Minister, Republic of Moldova. Your Excellency, mainly due to COVID-19, some of the progress that your government and the population had made in terms of, getting progress in areas of green and working with health issues, now that is being endangered. But within this challenge, there's also opportunity, and there are green opportunities. So from your point of view, running the Republic as you do, where do you see these opportunities, especially in terms of urban transformation? The floor is yours, Prime Minister.
Well, thank you, dear friends. Sehr geehrter Herr Steiner, ich begrüße Sie ganz herzlich. Again, dear friends, dear UNDP members. Well, at the outset, I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate and represent my country at this important regional event organized by UNDP, where indeed we have an opportunity to reflect on the current crisis, but also discuss a more inclusive, sustainable, and resilient future, and attention to rethink the ways we do development. The government of the Republic of Moldova has committed to achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, and we have furthermore pledged to innovate and do development in new ways. The recently conducted voluntary national review of progress made so far clearly indicates not only the specific areas of achievements, but also the problem spaces and options to accelerate progress. On the basis, the country is engaged in implementing the 2030 agenda through combined efforts of key stakeholders to eliminate all forms of poverty, combat inequalities, and tackle environmental and climate change, ensuring that no one is left behind. The Republic of Moldova also has an association agreement with the European Union, which we consider an immense opportunity for the modernization and democratization of my country. Concordantly, the agreement is a concrete way to activate the potential of the European Union-Moldova's relations, focusing on the so much needed support to core reforms, economic recovery, and sustainable growth, good governance, and sector cooperation. At the same time, being a small and open economy, in the current circumstances, the country is confronting deep crisis in many economic sectors, due indeed to additional risks and challenges associated with COVID-19, including in areas like health, access to health services, and education. Moreover, my country is still a predominantly rural country with about 57% of the rural population. At least these dates are coming from 2019 database. Consequently, some migration from rural to urban areas has been noticed, with the capital city of Chisinau being the most attractive urban center in my country, providing for multiple opportunities in the terms of living conditions, jobs and income, access to services, and so on and so forth. But as such migration trends are not sustainable, we need to focus more attention on supporting the development of additional or new growth poles other than the capital city. Despite the above mentioned and other difficulties, the government is making bold steps to accelerate progress along the SDGs and reduce inequalities, including the rural-urban disparities, both monetary and non-monetary ones. In this respect, I would like to highlight two recent relevant examples of policy and programmatic efforts of the government in support to urban sustainable development. The first one is related to the approval of the national program for the development of cities growth poles of the Republic of Moldova, which we envisage is from 2021 to 2027. Such program will support the development of growth poles in other cities like Cahul in south part of Moldova, Comrade, also south part of Moldova, Ungheni, Orhei, Soroca, and so far. Thus, creating a network of growth poles around the country for attracting investments, creating new decent jobs. It will also accelerate the development of the adjacent rural areas. The government of Moldova, with support of the European Union and UNDP indeed, is implementing a flagship program to support the regions of some countrysides of the Republic of Moldova to become positive examples of socio-economic growth and scale up such experience to a national scale. Another relevant example refers to the support of the government towards development of local infrastructure that is so much needed to create conditions for local greener growth. This means the support of the government to the establishment of the multifunctional industrial platforms in 16 districts outside the capital city with lower levels of industrialization in order to ensure more uniform regional development. Such platforms will support the development of medium and small size enterprises, micro and small medium enterprises, testing of new and greener production technologies, decent job creation, and export promotion. Speaking about sustainable urban development and transformation in the Republic of Moldova, I would like to underscore several areas of opportunities for the people of my country. Those include further support to the establishment of growth poles throughout the country, increasing the capacity of the local economy and communities to sustain themselves and create new, decent and greener jobs, further development of the local public services, and growth and modernization of local infrastructure, local level energy transition, and further attraction of new climate and smart investments in renewables, exploring new ways and models of connecting diaspora to local development process and innovative investment, and much more indeed. In concluding, I am taking this opportunity to thank again UNDP for all the assistance and enthusiasm in supporting the government and people of Moldova. Concurrently, I would like also to request additional assistance of UNDP in terms of innovation capacity, experimentation, and innovation work, particularly with focus on local economic development, urban transformation, and social inclusion. The crisis clearly suggests that we need to concentrate on transformational change and aspire to finding new non-linear solutions which test these solutions and scale up the successful ones. I know that UNDP is building a global network of accelerator labs as innovation spaces for transformational development, and we would like to become a part of such network and indeed benefit from the global network of UNDP expertise and experience. Allow me to thank you for your attention. We stand ready to further collaborate and work with UNDP and the United Nations family of agencies and advancing sustainable human development of our country. Thank you so much, and I'm passing back to you nowadays the screen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, Prime Minister. You've actually touched on all the key issues that are so important as we talk about urban transformation. You've talked about the need to rethink development, and that's exactly what Istanbul Innovation Days are all about. You've talked about new growth poles, local greener growth, new decent green jobs, and you've made an appeal for more help in boosting innovation capacity. I think Achim Steiner is well placed to respond to that. So Mr. Steiner, let me turn the screen to you with a question, which is really the, I guess it's the role of international organizations such as yours in this changing environment, climate, pandemic, and how do you actually then respond to the dual challenges or the multiple challenges really in terms of urban renewal, urban development? Because the Prime Minister, as you heard, did talk about sustainable urban development, which I think is the key going forward into this century. So Mr. Steiner, screen's yours.
Thank you, Shada, and Prime Minister, it's a pleasure to see you, my fellow panelists. Thank you, first of all, for joining us on this exciting platform, the Istanbul Innovation Days, which over the next few weeks, in the context of a pandemic, have shifted to a virtual space. But it has its disadvantages, but in some ways, it also opens up a far greater scope for connecting with people such as yourselves across the world. And that is my starting point, Shada. What is the role of an organization like UNDP? It is to be a connector. I think one of the things that we are rethinking about the future of development and the role of a United Nations development program and development system for that matter is that this is not about development aid in the traditional sense. We have experimentation happening across the globe today. Innovations, new ideas, new contexts that are driving new solutions. And one of the things that I think we could do best is to first of all be a partner in a local context. UNDP has the strength that it can work alongside governments, local governments. It can know the context in which it is meant to provide support and partnership, but it is also connected to 170 countries where these experiments are happening. And in the context of our topic this morning, I think urban futures, urban shifts are so fundamental to what will happen next. We just listened to Kirsten speaking to it. Prime Minister, you spoke about in the national context. Cities have been and will continue to be, in many ways, the lens through which a society looks at the future, because it has in history always been a place where new things started. In some ways, escaping from rural poverty into the urban opportunity was a step into a more dynamic environment, but sometimes also liberation. I mean, many of the greatest shifts in a national history took their origins in the city, where the concentration of ideas, the crossroads come together, but also revolutions start in the great squares in the world. So I think one of the things that I have been particularly concerned about is that when we look at the history of cities in the late 20th century, early 21st century, then more often than not, they have become more centers of entrapment. And this is not to generalize, every city has its own history, but we are finding that on two fundamental issues, we are not necessarily seeing the kind of dynamism that I think we all would like to project, particularly when we look at the city of 2050, and that is on issues of equity and sustainability. There are many innovations, but as Kirsten just mentioned, it's the systemic approach that we need to enable and empower. It is not the greening of a next corner of a city or a park. It is how we address the issues of greening the whole urban economy. But that is an illustration of sustainability. It then touches on our mobility systems, on our infrastructure development, on the urban economy in general. But then we also have issues such as digitalization. Is digitalization going to become a driver for greater equity, or will it simply reinforce the inequities that urban geography so often reflect? I mean, if we look at the human geography, the urban geography, it's almost like a history book of our societal history. And in our era today, cities have too often become, in their banlieues, in their suburbs, in the rundown parts of the city, an expression of neglect and great inequality. So if I envisage an urban transformation, a shift, and the city of 2050, then equity and sustainability will be the two drivers. And to the Prime Minister's point, and I end with that, I think the idea that innovation, experimentation, exploration, and solutions mapping, as we have called it, the three tasks of our accelerator lab networks embedded in our country teams, is very much at the heart of where the ideas will come from. The beauty of cities is, and we see that in local government, and we have the mayor of Gaziantep with us and others who have worked at the local municipal level. It is there where the connection between citizens' ideas and government is most immediate and most proximate. And that's why we need to look at that local governance and local governance domain as also a center for potential innovation. That is the idea behind the accelerator lab networks across the world, to try and uncover where people actually have solutions already in their mind, but the system doesn't allow them to succeed. And in that spirit, I hope that UNDP can continue to be a partner that is, first of all, always learning, secondly, connecting, thirdly, helping to be a good catalyst alongside the kinds of initiatives that the Prime Minister has spoken about and that others will speak to. Shada, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much indeed, Achim. I mean, I see the sort of the focus really is on equity and ensuring equality in urban centers, but globally too, and in sustainability. Of course, the green emergency has to be dealt with. And you spoke very rightly, Achim, of local governance and how important that is. We talk about global governance, and we often forget in our rhetoric, we often forget the key role played by mayors and local governance. So thank you very much indeed, Achim, for highlighting that. And speaking of local governance, let's turn now to the Mayor of Gaziantep, Fatma Shaheen. Fatma, thank you very much indeed for joining us as well. Now, your Gaziantep has been in the forefront. You've had to deal with a crisis that was the Syrian refugee crisis, if you liked, and you learned a number of lessons, I imagine, doing that. And I was just wondering, In terms of now, when you look at the pandemic and you look at the green emergency, the lessons you learned in terms of allocation of resources and agile governance, are you able to use that experience to deal with the current challenges of sustainability and urban renewal? I'll give you the screen now. Fatma, please.
Ben çok teşekkür ediyorum. Öncelikle bu davetiniz için çok teşekkür ediyorum. Sayın Başbakanı, UNDP'nin değerli başkanlarını, Avrupa Birliği'nin değerli başkanlarını, kıymetli parlamenteri ve Avrupa Konseyi'nin değerli üyelerini, hanımefendileri, beyefendileri, şahsım, şehrim, ülkem adına saygıyla, hürmetle selamlıyorum. Müsaade ederseniz ben 3 başlıkta bu sorunuza cevap vermek istiyorum. Çünkü sizin de söylemiş olduğunuz gibi yaklaşık 7 yıldan beri uğraştığımız bir sorun alanı var, göç. Aslında bugün göç, bulaşıcı hastalıklar, bunların hepsinin bir sonucu olduğunu görüyoruz. En önemli ve en uygun insani tedbirin de koruyucu önleyici tedbirler. Göç olmasın, bulaşıcı hastalıklar olmasın. İnsanlar huzurlu ve sağlıklı ortamda, sağlıklı şehirlerde, dirençli şehirlerde, güvenli şehirlerde yaşamaları için neler yapmamız ve neler yapmamamız gerektiğini söylemek istiyorum. Birincisi tabii 2 milyonluk şehiriz. Bir anda 500 bin misafirimizle 2,5 milyonluk bir şehir olduk. Önce direnç kazanmamız için kurumsal kapasitemizi bunu yönetilebilir hale dönüştürmemiz gerekiyordu. Hemen Sosyal İşler Başkanlığı bünyesinde, çünkü burada insani bir durum var. Hızlı müdahale gerekiyor, acil eylem planı gerekiyor. Bu konuyla alakalı özel bir, müstakil bir birim oluşturduk. Kurumsal kapasitemizi güçlendiremezsek, kendi direncimizi buna uygun hale dönüştüremezsek iyi yönetişimden bahsetmek mümkün değildi. Ve eğitim tabii ki olmazsa olmazımızdı. Önce ben aynı zamanda bir mühendis olduğum için Kurucu Aile ve Sosyal Politikalar Bakanlığı'nda dünyadaki iyi örnekleri de yakinen yerinde görme fırsatımız olduğu için önce ölçtük. Bir merkez kurduk, bir araştırma merkezi kurduk. Çünkü sayısal olarak bu 500 bin içerisinde ne kadar öğrenci var, ne kadar eğitime muhtaç, bir kişi bile kayıp nesil olmasın, bir kişi bile geride kalmasın, herkese adaleti ve fırsat eşitliğini sağlayalım diye ölçümleme yaptık ve bunun sonunda 120 bin çocuğumuzun derhal eğitim hayatına girmesini sayısını yakalayınca bunu yönetilebilmesi için özellikle Milli Eğitim Bakanlığımızda yerelle geneli çok ciddi koordine etmemiz gerekiyordu ve bugün bu konuda hem temel eğitimde hem üniversiteye gitme oranında bence dünyanın en iyi örneklerinden biri olduk. Çünkü eğer entegrasyonu sağlayamazsanız, yarın bu çocukları sistemin içine alamazsanız terörizm gibi, radikalizm gibi bir takım sorunların altyapısını oluşturacaksınız. O yüzden eğitim olmazsa olmazımız dedik ve birlikte okutma modeli dediğimiz 2 çocuğumuzu birlikte okutacak modellerimizi geliştirdik. Bu bize 4000 hemen derslik ihtiyacını getirdi. Çok hızlı 4000 derslik yapmamız gerekiyordu. Çünkü 100 bin çocuk sistemin içine girince derslik başına öğrenci sayımızda ciddi artış oldu. İkinci 4000'i, ilk 4000'i tamamladık. Şimdi Milli Eğitim Bakanlığımızla birlikte ikinci 4000 dersliği nasıl yapacağız ve bunu sürdürülebilir nasıl kılacağız, bunu çalıştık. İkinci en önemli başlığımız dirençte, güvende, sağlıklı şehir olmaktı. Her bir bireyin sağlığını korumaktan sorumluyduk ve sağlıkta en önemli şey sağlık altyapısıyla birlikte ulaşılabilirlik. Özellikle bizim şu an pandemi sürecinde gördüğümüz bir şey var ki bütün dünyadaki en büyük sorun sağlık altyapınız önemli, fakat sağlıkta ulaşılabilirlik bir o kadar daha önemli. Sosyal güvenlik çatısı. Biz doğan her çocuğun sigortalı doğduğu ve 18 yaşına kadar bütün sağlık güvencelerinden istifade ettiği bir sağlıkta dönüşümü zaten başarmıştık. Mülteci çocuklarımızı da bunun içine dahil ettik. Ve bugün hamdolsun mültecilerde korona sürecinde en sağlıklı yöneten ve rakamlara baktığınız zaman da korona olma oranı 7'de 1'e düşen bir kesimle bir sonuçla birlikte yaşıyoruz. Bundan da ziyadesiyle mutluyuz. Doğru iş yaptığınız zaman eğer sağlıktaki dönüşüm yapılmamış olsaydı, Suriyeli mülteciler sağlık sistemine dahil olmamış olsaydı bugün şehrin sağlık altyapısından, sağlıklı şehirden, dirençli şehirden bahsetmek mümkün olmayacaktı. Pandemi sürecinden önce özellikle istihdamda göçü bir kalkınma modeline dönüştürmek, birlikte çalışma modeli dediğimiz açık işte nerede iş varsa bunu özellikle mülteci kardeşlerimizin yeteneklerine, kapasitelerine, kapsayıcılıklarına göre tematik çalıştırarak, modelleyerek sistemin içine dahil ettik. Özellikle onların taş ustalığında, ayakkabı sektöründe, özellikle Arapça ve İngilizce bildikleri için uluslararası ticaretteki kapasitelerini kalkınmanın, şehrin kalkınmasının bir parçası haline dönüştürdük. Dördüncü başlığımız da özellikle Büyükşehir Belediyesi'nde beklenen temel ihtiyaçlar. Bunlar ne? Bir büyükşehirden altyapı ve su yönetimi. Eğer biz 7 yıl önce su yönetimini doğru yönetmeseydik bugün şehrin suyu yoktu. 2,5 milyon şehrin su yönetimi iyi yönetilmemiş olsaydı bugün kuraklıkla birlikte dünya suyu daha iyi nasıl yöneteceğizi konuşurken suyu olmayan şehirde neyi konuşacaktık? O yüzden 130 kilometre ileriden Cazibe ile 1050 kodundan Türkiye'nin en büyük su projesini tamamladık ve yaklaşık bir yıldan beri şehire yeni bir su kaynağı ilave ettik. Çok yüksek maliyeti, çok yüksek bütçesi olan bu projeyi tamamladık ve hem su kalitesini artırdık hem su maliyetlerini aşağı düşürdük. Dolayısıyla bizim pandemide en önemli şey hijyen, su olunca olmayan suyla hijyeni nasıl sağlayacaktınız? Nasıl sağlıklı bir ortam oluşturacaktınız? O gün yaptığımız şeylerin pandemiyle birlikte ne kadar önemli olduğunu gördük. Pandemide aslında hepimiz için, Birleşmiş Milletler için, Avrupa için, dünya için çok önemli dersler var. Sürdürülebilir kalkınmada yalnızca ekonomik kalkınmanın yetmediğini, insani ve çevresel kalkınmanın bir kalkınma modeli olduğunu konuştuk. Ama yeterince bunu aktivite edememiştik. Hangi ülke insanı merkeze alan bir kalkınma modeli koyduysa, sosyal devlet ve sosyal belediyeciliği güçlendirdiyse onlar pandemiden en az zararla çıktı. Hangi ülke çevreye daha çok yatırım yaptıysa, yeşil ekonomiye, bilgi ekonomisine daha çok yatırım yaptıysa pandemiden daha az zararla çıktı. O yüzden biz pandemi süreci başlar başlamaz hem Cumhurbaşkanımızın güçlü liderliği, bilim kurulundan çıkan raporlar, kuvvetli bir sağlık altyapımız, sağlıkta sosyal güvenlik altyapısı, ulaşılabilirlik ama daha da mühimi genelle yerelin koordinasyonu, dayanışması çünkü bütün uygulama yerelde oluyor. Ankara'nın göndermiş olduğu genelgeleri ete kemiğe büründürecek olan şeyler şehirler. Şehirlerdeki iyi yönetişim, iyi koordinasyon. Bunu da en iyi sağlayan şehirlerden biri olduk. Bugün Türkiye haritasına baktığınız zaman 2,5 milyonluk şehirlerin içerisinde en iyisiyiz. Bunu nasıl tesis ettik? Özellikle dijitalleşme burada çok önemliydi. Biz 2017 yılında akıllı ulaşımın altlığını oluşturmuştuk. Akıllı ulaşım Gaziantep kart yaklaşık 2,5 milyon insanın kullandığı, 1,5 milyonun direkt uygulama indirdiği çok önemli bir akıllı ulaşım altyapısıydı. Bunun faydasını nerede gördük? Pandemi başlar başlamaz hemen HES koduyla, Sağlık Bakanlığı ile protokolümüzü yaptık. Eğer temaslıysa, şüpheliyse, eğer pozitif bir vaka varsa toplu taşıma, otobüsler, tramvaylar, bunların hepsinde HES kodunu okudunca sabahleyin tramvaya binmek çalıştığı zaman sistemi kilitledi. Gaziantep kart kendini iptal etti. Dedi ki siz evinizde olmanız lazım. Siz bu otobüse binemezsiniz. Toplu taşımayı güvenli, sağlıklı ve dirençli hale dönüştürdük. Ve dijitalleşmenin bu sorunu çözmede ne kadar önemli olduğunu, akıllı ulaşımın bu sorunu çözmede ne kadar önemli olduğunu görme fırsatımız oldu. Diğer önemli konularımızdan bir tanesi pandemiyle birlikte pandemiden sonra kurulacak yeni dünyaya şimdiden kendimizi hazırladık. Çünkü pandemi bize şunu gösterdi. Eğer toprağı koruyamazsanız, suyu koruyamazsanız, havayı koruyamazsanız insanı koruyamıyorsunuz. Doğayı korumanız ve çevre projelerinde güçlendirmeniz gerekiyor. Yine biz 7 yıl önce Ulaşım Master Planı, İmar Master Planı ile birlikte İklim Master Planı'nı yapmış bir şehiriz. İklim Master Planı'nda bu şehrin kirletici unsurları nelerdir? Sanayide çevreci bir sanayice geçme, ulaşımda özellikle karbonsuz ulaşım dediğimiz bunu en aza indirecek yatırımlar yapma gibi havayı, suyu, toprağı koruyan ve kirletici unsurları azaltacak hem acil eylem hem orta ve uzun vade planlaması yaptık ve sertifikalar aldık. Türk Standartlar Enstitüsü ile çalışarak bunların nasıl yönetilebilir olduğunu gördük. Kendi kurumsal kapasitemizi de buna uygun hale dönüştürdük. Ve en önemli kısım enerji yönetimiydi, bilgi yönetimiydi. Yeni dünya bilgi ekonomisi ve yeşil ekonomi üzerinde kendini yeniden yapılandıracağını görür görmez biz bilgi ekonomisinde, şehir ekonomisinde, bilgi ekonomisinde bilişim AŞ'yi kurduk. Daha hızlı hareket etmemiz için ve şu anda enerji AŞ'yi kuruyoruz. Bu ne işe yarayacak deyince en büyük tüketici şehirler. Tükettiğiniz bütün enerjiyi yenilenebilir enerji kullanarak üretmek gibi elimizde büyük imkanlar ve fırsatlar var. Bunu değerlendirmek için de güneşi, suyu, HES'leri ve RES'leri, rüzgar enerjisinin fizibilitelerini yaptırdık. Enerji Bakanlığı ile birlikte solar otoparklar başta olmak üzere, biyogazlar başta olmak üzere Büyükşehir Belediyesi olarak çeşitlilik ve alternatifleri çoğaltarak yenilenebilir enerji altyapımızı güçlendirdik ve bugün bu konuda Türkiye'nin en iyi belediyelerinden birisi olduk. Şu anda üzerinde çalıştığımız en önemli konulardan bir tanesi yeşil ekonomi. Yeşil ekonomide nedir yeşil ekonomi? Şunu gördük ki biz artık kendi kendine yeten bir ülke ve bir şehir olmamız lazım. Bunu özellikle maske üretiminde gördük, tarımda gördük, gıdada gördük. Özellikle bunu da akıllandırarak, teknolojik altyapıyı koyarak da biz kendi tükettiğimiz bereketli hilal noktasındayız. Lezzetin başkenti UNESCO tarafından onaylanmış bir yaratıcı şehirler ağı var. Ama sofra bir sonuç ve her şey toprakta başlıyor. Buna biz güneşten, topraktan ve tarihten gelen lezzet dedik. Her şey toprakla başlıyor. Toprağı temiz tutmamız ve teknolojiyi kullanmamız gerekiyor. O yüzden kadın istihdamını da güçlendirmek için kadın kooperatiflerini geliştirdik. Tarım okulları açtık. Şu anda özellikle pandemi süreci bize şunu gösterdi ki insanın bağışıklık sistemi çok önemli. C vitamini, D vitamini, çinko ve magnezyum ağırlıklı beslenmek gerekiyor. Ve bunlar hangi ürünlerde var deyince şu anda Gaziantep Büyükşehir olarak kadın kooperatifleriyle birlikte bunları üretmeye başladık. Ürettiğimiz bu ürünleri şifa paketine dönüştürüp koronalı hastaların hepsine elden teslim ettik. Hem maskelerini teslim ettik, hem hijyen malzemelerini teslim ettik, hem şifa paketlerini teslim ettik. Bu bizim için çok çok önemliydi ve şimdi akıllı tarımla birlikte akıllı gıdaya geçiyoruz. Çünkü sanayi altyapımızda gıdaya dayalı sanayi altyapımız çok önemli. Burada da özellikle yapay zekayla akıllı gıdayı üniversitelerle, teoriyle pratiği birleştirecek altyapıyı oluşturuyoruz ve bu alanda tematik çalışıyoruz. Hava da buradan en önemli kısımlarımızdan bir tanesi. Havayı kirletecek, karbondioksit salınımı azaltacak, iklim biziz değişeceğiz diyoruz. Hanımefendi Cumhurbaşkanımızın eşinin özellikle sıfır atık projesi, sıfır atık mavi denizlerde olduğu gibi bu konuda mavi ve yeşili koruyan, sıfır atığı güçlendiren bir çalışma yapıyoruz. Ve geçen hafta bu konuyla alakalı Çevre Bakanlığımız bir iklim kanunu hazırlıyor. Kim ne yapacak? Yerel ne yapacak? Genel ne yapacak? hükümet ne yapacak, sivil toplum ne yapacak? Buradaki eylem planıyla bu kanunla birlikte çok daha hızlanacağımız teşvikler ve çok daha bu işi kolaylaştıracağımız yeni modeller oluşturuyoruz. Ve şunu gördük ki pandemi sonrasındaki bu başlıklar bize özellikle yeni bir dünyanın altyapısını oluşturuyor. Mesela bizim en büyük gücümüz bir taraftan sanayi şehriyiz, onu yüksek teknolojiye geçiriyoruz. Ama bir taraftan da kültür ve turizm şehriyiz. Kültürel turizmde de artık yeni bir çalışma var. Bu yeni çalışmada çok büyük oteller yerine butik oteller, kanyon turizmi, karavan turizmi, yerellik, deneyimleme.
Thank you very much, Ms. Şahin.
Bu konular üzerinde
May I ask you to quickly wrap up because I need to give the floor also to Mr. Forto and Ms. Cotier, please. Your final words?
Evet, yani işin özü yeşil ekonomi ve bilgi ekonomisi önümüzdeki sürecin önemli başlığı olacak. Sizin de söylemiş olduğunuz başlıklara kurumsal kapasitemizi hazırladık, sivil toplumu hazırladık ve inşallah uluslararası alanda hem Birleşmiş Milletler'le hem Avrupa Birliği'yle tematik proje bazlı çalışmaya hazırız. UNDP'ye şu ana kadar verdiği bütün destekten dolayı teşekkür ediyoruz. Aynı desteği sürdürülebilir bir şekilde kılmak istiyoruz.
Thank you very much, Ms. Şahin. So a lot of achievements and successes that you can share with other partners and can be replicated. And you said something that's very important, it's community-based development. And I'm sure Achim has been listening to your calls for help from the UNDP and will be ready to do so in his capacity. So thank you very much indeed, Ms. Şahin. So let me turn now to Mr. Forto. Mr. Forto, thank you also for joining us. So the current government, which has elected you, has one of the broadest and strongest mandates from citizens in Canton, Sarajevo, since the end of the war. And you're also coming to the helm of the canton in possibly one of the, let's say, harshest moments in the last 25 years, and with the socio-economic effects of the pandemic are being felt by citizens. And I was just wondering, given that this is the situation at the moment, what are your hopes for tackling this issue of pandemic, but also the greening of urban centers in your canton? Thank you very much, Mr. Forto.
Hello, everyone. I'm honored to be in this company with all the speakers who have great responsibilities in transforming their societies, but also individuals and organizations who are helping us to do so. When you mentioned that one of the strongest mandates is the fact that we have as a cantonal government, and for those who don't follow closely, and I'm sure it's most of you, Bosnian politics. It's we are a canton, but we have all the competencies, ingerencies of a city. Plus, we have our own health system. So it's like being a mayor of a city with all the competencies where people look up to you for the quality of life, for quality of health, health service. In general, for everything that citizens are looking for before deciding where to live. So when you say we had the strongest mandate in 2019, we had like a little government of Canton Sarajevo that has changed certain things in the way we were governing our canton, and this is the first time in 25 years where one political group or a group of parties agreed on lowering the privileges of the political class, making them or forcing them to be more transparent in governing, declaring their assets. And we are also preparing some laws where it will be illegal to, for example, have family members employed in some of the many institutions and cantonal companies that we own, and we own way too many of them. And so when we started this in 2019, I guess we were too radical in these propositions of having to open our books and be so transparent and fighting the increasing number of corruption scandals that we were putting out in the public. that when we were replaced by in the council at the end of 2019, we had a 70% support of the people, which is really strange in Bosnia, where people generally don't like politicians. And it's really a tough uphill battle for us who want to regain trust with the people. And now I'm coming back to one of the main questions is how do we respond and how do we keep the hope up among the public? One of the biggest reasons, this is from the polls undertaken by the USAID and some other institutions who actually do polling in Bosnia, the number one reason for immigration is our citizens leaving for Europe, mostly for Germany. And I know this is a wider regional trend, but in Bosnia, it's really extreme. It's not just that the young people are leaving, middle-aged people are leaving, the whole families are leaving. We used to have a tradition of males from households going abroad, going to Germany, earning some money and coming back. But this is not the case anymore. Now everyone is leaving. And the number one reason why they are leaving is, there are several, but the first reason is corruption, especially access to jobs. For those who are not familiar, the number one employer in Canton Sarajevo, in general in Bosnia, is the state. We have too many state companies, post offices, telecoms, utility companies, local, municipal, cantonal companies, federal companies. It's amazing. And if access to jobs to the number one employer in the country is not fair, and people generally think it's not because it's not, then people think they don't have hope of fair employment. So anyone who is not connected politically or doesn't have access to that to these jobs, they feel like they are citizens of the lower order. This is number one reason why people are leaving the country, but also Canton Sarajevo. Number two reason is the quality of life. And this is where we come to all the things, popular things that are being said in all forums like this, but this is something that we truly believe can change the attitude of citizens toward their own government and making them think twice before they leave. Quality of life is the water supply, it's the public transport, it's the air quality, which in Sarajevo is extremely low. We have the worst air quality, one of the worst in Bosnia. We're top 3 in Bosnia with pollution, but one of the worst in the world, actually. Worst capital, one of the worst capital cities in the world. And so when we say we want to give you cleaner air, better public transport, better water, and more certain and higher quality water supply, and all the things. For example, our institutions will work more efficiently, better through digitalization, our openness to the citizens. This all, we believe, will give people hope to think twice before leaving. So there's a paradigm in Sarajevo when you say, let's clean up our dirty city and let's make sure that the air is cleaner. This is like saying, let's turn the country upside down, because this isn't how priorities were stated. We are the first government, cantonal government, so let's say a first city administration that has actually asked the citizens in a wide and scientifically based polling, where we ask people, what is your number one problem? When they say it's public transport, we put it in the budget. It hasn't been like this. It used to be that a couple of political parties used to set what is the main goal for the whole population, which is ridiculous. So this interactivity, transparency, and trying to talk to people and even accept all criticism that isn't, people are not used to being criticized. We really insist that the public criticizes us, that they set the Norwegian or Western European standards for us, and we will respond. And then everything else comes after. So if we can bring back hope, if we can think that people see that we are trying to improve the quality of life and try to improve access to jobs, then I think that we will stop the worst crisis that we're having. Not just the COVID is here, but it will go away. But the worst crisis that the whole region and the city of Sarajevo have is people leaving to other countries because they think they don't have a good life here. and this is our mission. This mission will be helped greatly by some of you. We have been working with the UNDP for a while now, and this is something where they can actually help us, not just with the transfer of knowledge, which is necessary, but also with speeding things up. So I'm open for all the questions, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Forto. You talked about transparency, interactivity, and I think one of the keys to good local governance is be ready to take criticism and respond to it constructively as well. So thank you very much for sharing your hopes and also your challenges as we go forward. Let me turn now to our final panelist, Josiane Koutayar. Josiane, you have been member of the Committee for Industry, Research and Energy, and we have talked about the urban economy as well. So from your point of view, Josiane, what is the role of SMEs and small and medium-sized enterprises in this urban rejuvenation or transformation that we've been talking about? Please, screen's yours.
Thank you, Shada, and thank you also for this invite and interesting discussion. For sure, SMEs have a vital role to play and we help them to reach their full potential. And let's remember that SMEs are grounded in the local communities, and apart from the economic aspect, they also are linked to the one of our social pillars, one of our important pillars, that is the social pillar. And therefore, when we speak about SMEs, we're speaking also of the social aspect, in the sense that we're speaking about people in the community, we're speaking about jobs, and we're speaking about the workforce. And here it's important to keep in mind that this important aspect of the local economic and social fabric, which SMEs represent, is part both of our rural but also of our urban communities. And therefore, this surely relates to our debate today. And I wanted to put forward here a key concept, which is the word cluster. What do we mean when we talk about clusters? Clusters is nothing new for practitioners and policymakers in reality, and it links to important elements. That is, it links SMEs to their activities, to their location. And this is also reminds us that it's important that these clusters are pushed forward in their full potential, and we assist these clusters. And then I wanted also to specify that the enhancement of the nexus between enterprise and location is of utmost importance also when it comes to creating a building block enabling the transformation of local communities through innovation and technology. Previous speakers have emphasized the importance of digitalization, the importance of technology, also when it comes to the green agenda, and also the important aspect of innovation, where we also saw a presentation, followed an interesting presentation, which put forward an important concept. When we speak about SMEs grounded in the local communities, these SMEs have to first and foremost, to be successful, look at the local needs, the local demand, also when it comes to sustainability. In that way, we can ensure that these SMEs vis-a-vis our urban and city atmosphere, they could be also successful. I wanted also then to mention an important aspect when it comes to SMEs, and this relates to skills. It's something I push forth a lot in the SME strategy, where I was shadow rapporteur to the report issued by the European Parliament, which was successfully voted upon in December, and skills are indeed very, very much important. Skills, along with addressing the knowledge gap which exists among SMEs. And when we speak of knowledge gap, that refers to opportunities related to the green transition, to the digital transition, but also opportunities of collaboration, even when it comes to partnerships relating to research and innovation with regards to the private sector itself, such as bigger companies than SMEs, but also with researchers, local educational institutions, and also governments. When we speak about skills, we're speaking about the workforce, about the same people which are embedded in our communities. And therefore, it's important also for there to be mutual exchange between our SMEs and the local educational institutions, as well as research centers, because together they could really transform our communities. On one side, SMEs will help boost the skills demand. On the other, educational institutions and research centers will funnel talent, knowledge, and also creativity towards our local communities. Then more generally, SMEs, especially the most innovative ones, also can help to have a spillover effect on our communities. And here I refer to two practical examples. For example, SMEs active in the circular economy value chain or those operating in the renewable energies field would have a spillover effect when it comes to the local communities, as much as would have a spillover effect a local craftsman who will sell traditional products, for example, through e-commerce platform. Digitalization also opportunities which this pandemic has pushed us towards, and it's a positive, I believe. All these examples have a transformational effect for the local communities, both in terms of local development, but also job creation, as well as considering the positive environmental impact on citizens' quality of life. And when we speak of quality of life, I link a bit to also the Leipzig Charter, which mentions a lot of practical aspects which would lead to better quality of life, such as, for example, productive cities, which is a very important concept, which looks at attractiveness, the aspect of innovation, the aspect of competitiveness, but also linking to sustainability and digitalization, which is very much important. And here, yes, it's important that when we speak of transformation, we do keep in mind the importance of green open spaces, green walls, for example, green roofs, even in the most urban of our spaces. These all offer us a lot of importance when it comes to our well-being. I am born and I was raised among the countryside of a small island, Gozo, and when I went to Malta to study and work and lived mostly in Malta and lived in urban spaces, I very much miss this green aspect. But then it's important that amongst this very urban developments, we do find green spaces in one way or another. This is doable. And also the aesthetics of our building, the design and the way that we develop our buildings, something also mentioned in the Leipzig Charter, and I believe it's very, very much essential. The modern aspect can go along with the traditional aspect if we have proper planning in place. And here I would like then to also...
Josiane, may I ask you also to wrap up very quickly?
I will.
We're already beyond our...
last point, which relates also to the Leipzig Charter and linking to my own country I'm coming from. Another important aspect is that when we speak of urban development, urban sustainability, we don't look at big cities only. My country, Malta, is a good example here, and although it doesn't have big cities as we know them, it does have issues related to urban areas, such as waste management. Overpopulation is the most densely populated country in the European Union, and therefore these challenges are still there. And when we speak of inclusivity, it's important to keep in mind these areas too. I will conclude on the importance of inclusivity when it comes to persons along the whole spectrum, including people with issues of mobility, people with disabilities, people in minorities. They're all very much important and should be all in this collaboration that we'll have amongst each other, including in SMEs, where we know there are missing entrepreneurs, such as females, persons with disabilities, and migrants, so that to ensure that we transform wholly, leaving really no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Josiane. So we've overshot our deadline by about 4 minutes, so I'm not going to keep you for much longer. There is a video that you will be able to see, the one that was interrupted in the beginning. And just before giving the floor to Mirjana, once again, let me just say that this has been really a fascinating conversation. Thank you to all the panelists. We've talked about the urban transformation from different angles, your different viewpoints. You've talked about inequities, inclusion, sustainability, the importance of digital SMEs, and above all of partnerships and collaboration, working together. And so thank you very much indeed to all of you for taking part in this panel. Mirjana, may I give you the final word, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Shada, and thank you, colleagues. I particularly thank the Prime Minister, the mayors of Gaziantep and Sarajevo, and to the Member of Parliament, Josiane Koutahar, for their insights, but also Kirsten's presentation in the beginning, all revealed how important it is to focus on, as the mayor of Sarajevo said, Mr. Forto, to focus on three things. Focus on, trust people have in institutions, focus on the quality of life, health, jobs, education, as the mayor of Gaziantep also stressed, but also the, respect for nature and seeing the city's development in the context of the planet and saving and protecting the planet to ensure that quality of life and sustainability going forward. What we also learned today is the necessity to move beyond silos, break down silos, and take a systems approach to development. I think this is extremely important. We need jobs, but jobs and SMEs don't thrive in isolation, as Josiane has also mentioned. They are anchored in their local context, but have to be supported by regional policies as well. So it's many dots that we have to connect and many partners we have to work with going forward. And this is exactly what we are promoting as UNDP, promoting us as a connector and an integrator, as the administrator stressed in the beginning, but also us trying to learn from the different sides and bringing them together to develop portfolio approaches and not to oversee what is necessary for development, actually to create an impact for the people on the ground. We will continue our cooperation with you. We also heard the Prime Minister's call on integrating our office in Moldova more closely into the Accelerator Lab network and supporting the drive for innovation across the region and in the country. We will continue the conversations around the Istanbul Innovation Day. So this was just an opening of, as I said, over 30 events that we are going to have over the next few weeks. We will continue with the Asia region on the 1st of March on digital transformation. We will then follow on with regional dialogue on the Middle Eastern region on rethinking development in conflict and fragile settings, and then hold a framing dialogue together with EY from Berlin, San Francisco, and Dubai on different areas of development cooperation until then the actual event starts on 23rd of March, which will last then until the 25th of March. And after the actual Istanbul Development Days, we will continue with regional dialogues on Latin America and Africa as well. Thank you very much, Shada, for being with us and for moderating through the session. I thank the distinguished panelists again. It was great listening to you. I've taken a lot of notes and we have learned again today from all of you. I'm sorry we can't have the discussion that we plan to have, but we'll hopefully have it in different formats going forward. And I look forward to meeting you soon again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Have a great day or evening.